And we must change the policies that have caused incomes to drop and jobs to disappear, home values to plummet, and health care costs to skyrocket. We have to change the policies that have devastated our middle class and shaken the foundation of our economy. We must end the policies of the last 8 years. It is as simple as that. This has been Pueblo. This has been our message from the day we began this campaign. This has been our message when we were up in the polls and when we were down in the polls. When folks said we were sure to win and folks said we were sure to lose. And until now, that's not been John McCain's message. For the last 19 months, he has argued that we don't need change. What qualifies him to be president is the quarter century he's spent in Washington. The experience that comes from decades of walking the halls of power. But now, suddenly, John McCain says he's about change too. He's even started using our lines. He's saying he wants to turn the page. He says he wants to take on the lobbyists. He even put out an ad today, get this, saying that Governor Palin and he would bring, and I quote, the change that we need. Does that sound familiar? Listen, they say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But you know what? Pueblo, instead of borrowing our lines or our slogans, I wish you'd actually borrow some of our ideas. Let me tell you this. If Senator... If Senator McCain now wants to talk about who can bring change to Washington, that's a debate that I'm happy to have. You know, it's great that he now wants to talk about putting corporate lobbyists in their place, but he needs to explain why he put 7 of them in charge of his campaign. Lobbyists for the insurance and the oil industry, for Freddie Mac and foreign governments. And if you think those lobbyists are working day and night for John McCain just to put themselves out of work, well, let me tell you, I've got a bridge to sell you up in Alaska. I agree with John McCain that bipartisanship and independence are important. But it was just a few months ago that John McCain was bragging about how he's voted with George Bush 90% of the time. 90%. What kind of judgment or independence does it show if you think George Bush was right 90% of the time? I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like change to me. I'm not ready to take a 10% chance on change. I want a 100% guarantee that we're going to change America. That's why I'm running for president of the United States of America. We can't risk this election on promises and slogans. Not this time. Not now. We are facing some serious challenges. Serious challenges in this country, both domestically and internationally. But on just about every economic issue, there is not a dime's worth of difference between John McCain's proposals and what we have right now. In 19 months, he has not named one thing he would do differently from this administration on the central issue of this election. Not one thing. And we know that if we go down that path, the next 4 years will look exactly like the last 8. That's not a risk I'm willing to take. That's not a future I want for my children or for your children. That's not the America I know or the America I grew up in. That's not the America you know and the America you believe in. We want something different. Let me tell you, when I talk to those young veterans who come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, you know what I see? I see my grandfather, who signed up after Pearl Harbor, marched in Patton's army, and was rewarded by a grateful nation with the chance to go to college on the GI Bill. In the face of a young student I met who sleeps just 3 hours a night before working the night shift because she's going to school, but she also has to take care of a sister with cerebral palsy. I think about my mom, who raised my sister and me on her own while she worked and earned her college degree, who once turned to food stamps to help take care of her kids, but was still able to send us to some of the best schools in the country. When I listen to another worker tell me that his factory shut down, that he's had to pack up the equipment to ship it to China, and he's lost not just his job, but he's lost his health care, he's lost his pension, and he's lost his sense of dignity. That sense that work gives him, a sense of purpose. I remember all those men and women on the south side of Chicago who I stood by and fought for 2 decades ago after the local steel plant closed. People in Pueblo know something about local steel plants closing. Those are my heroes. Their stories are the ones that shaped me and my life and my values. It's on their behalf that I intend to win this election and keep the promise of America alive as President of the United States of America. Now, from the day we began this election, I've said that the change we need is both a change in our policies and our politics. If we want to meet the challenges we've talked about for decades, we need to end the entire culture of money and influence in Washington. We need to stop the partisan point scoring and the petty bickering that serves the needs of politicians, but not the needs of the American people. We have always been at our best when our leaders have rallied us around a common purpose, a higher purpose. And I'm running for president because that's the kind of leadership that we need right now. That's the kind of country we need to be right now. So let me spell out exactly. Let me spell out, because sometimes I hear people saying, well, yeah, he says change, but I don't know what it means. Let me spell out exactly how I would keep that promise if I'm president. Let me tell you what change really means. Not change as a slogan, not change as trying to pretend you didn't say what you said earlier, but change that will make an impact in your life. Change is a Washington where corporate lobbyists and their clients don't set the agenda, where you do. I've spent my career taking on lobbyists and their money, and I've won. If you wanted a special favor in Illinois, when I first got in the state legislature, there was actually a law that let you give campaign cash to politicians for their own personal use. In the State House, they called it business as usual. I called it legalized bribery. And it didn't make me the most popular guy in Springfield, but I put an end to it. And when I got to Washington, we saw some of the worst corruption since Watergate. And I led the fight for reform in my party, and let me tell you, not everyone in my party was too happy about it. When I proposed forcing lobbyists to disclose who they were raising money from and who in Congress they were funneling it to, I had a few choice words directed my way on the floor of the Senate. But we got it done. We got it done, and we banned gifts from lobbyists and meals from lobbyists and rides on their fancy jets. I am the only candidate who can say that Washington lobbyists do not fund my campaign. They will not run my White House, and they will not drown out the voices of the American people when I'm President of the United States of America. That's what